That's the tactical, that's the strategic. Let's talk about the economic. If you take everything that Belarus and Ukraine and Russia, the belligerents, do, put into a single bucket, they are collectively the world's largest supplier of the first column, second largest for the second, and so on. I could speak for hours on this one slide. I did so at the CIA for 4 hours back in October. Yeah, that was no fun at all, because they're like asking all these questions, but they won't answer any of mine. When the Soviet system collapsed back in the 1990s, the entire industrial base just went down. But they didn't lose their power generation. Now, the Soviet system was one of the few parts of the world that didn't have access to bauxite, which is the precursor material for aluminum. So what they did in the 90s, since they had all this spare electricity and no industrial production, is they imported all kinds of bauxite from other places, used their spare power to turn it into metal, and then export it. Most of that bauxite came from either Australia or Ireland, two countries that have been relatively enthusiastic about sanctions on the Russian system. So that's shut down. Titanium, the ore comes from Ukraine, it's processed in Russia. So that's gone to zero. You guys remember Brexit? I mean, isn't it hilarious that we don't even think about the Brits anymore? As an American, I really enjoy that. Okay. When the Brits left the EU, they neglected to figure out what was next. And they've come to the conclusion, grudgingly, that the only way that Britain will be a successful economic player moving forward is if they enter into a free trade deal with the North Americans, primarily the United States. We've got some very clear ideas on what they have to do to make that happen. One of the many, many, many things that they're going to have to do is leave the Airbus family of European aerospace companies and join Boeing. This is where it gets fun. Britain's contribution to Airbus are engines and wings. Most of the aluminum from the former Soviet world goes to Airbus. Most of the titanium goes to Airbus. So the future of European aerospace are jets without titanium, aluminum, engines, or wings. Talks amongst yourselves. All right, what else? The blue, neon, and platinum. These are core components in semiconductors. The platinum, the palladium, the rhodium, those are all core materials to regulate electrons. And the neon is used in cartridges which focus the apertures of the etching lasers in the semiconductor fab facilities. Now, neon is made in a two-step process. Step one, you have an air separation unit which is attached to a steel mill. In the former Soviet world, those are almost exclusively in southern Russia. They are all under sanction and they all are barely operating anymore. The second stage is you take your first stage air separation and all the gases that you don't use when you're making steel, so anything that's not nitrogen or oxygen, you put into a canister, you send it off to this more advanced facility, and you separate out all the trace gases: helium, argon, carbon dioxide, neon. Those facilities were in Mariupol, and Mariupol is gone. The brown. Russia is the world's #1 wheat exporter. It's invaded the world's 5th largest wheat exporter and is deliberately targeting every piece of physical infrastructure it can see, with an extra emphasis on agricultural infrastructure. No way we're not going to feel that soon. But it's the red that really worries me the most, because the Russian space is the world's largest supplier of the stuff that allows people to grow their own food. Of most concern, 40% of global potash comes from Russia and Belarus. Now, the story varies greatly based on which specific nutrient or combination you're looking at. But somewhere between 20% and 40% of all of them have been reduced out of the Russian space. One of the weird little things about Russia is most of their petrochemical facilities were built in the 60s under Khrushchev. What we're looking at here is a pipeline map. Specifically, we are looking at the green pipes. Those are the oil pipes, and the two arrows are pointing at a pair of ports, one on the Baltic Sea in the north, that is Primorsk, and one on the Black Sea in the south, that's Novorossiysk. And the reason that these really matter is insurance. And I can just see everybody like, work with me? It gets really sexy really fast. You cannot have a vessel go into a port, out of a port, or go through a constrained waterway like, say, Suez without an insurance policy. And as of the first of the year, the Europeans said no ship can get one of their policies. That's 90% of global coverage. In addition, the global reinsurance companies, those are firms that insure insurance companies, without sanctions in play again, just said we're never touching another Russian vessel again. Now, you're going to see in the news things about the price cap. That's all wrapped up into this. And everyone talks about the price cap as, ooh, sexy, they can only get like $40, whatever. It's the insurance that really matters, and it's already gone. So we have seen in just the last week and a half, exports out of the Russian space drop by about 1.5 million barrels a day. Now, anything more than where we are now, that 1.5 million, things get really, really fast. Because this isn't Texas. In Texas, if for whatever reason the ports can't get rid of the crude, they just shut in the well. They don't like to do it, but they can do it. But in Russia, if you shut in a well in the permafrost, which is where most of this stuff...
The ongoing conflict between Russia and Ukraine has had a significant impact on the global economy. The crisis, which began in 2014 when Russia annexed Crimea, has led to economic sanctions and a decline in trade and investment between Russia and other countries, including Ukraine. One of the most significant impacts of the crisis has been on the energy market. Russia is one of the world's largest oil and gas producers, and the conflict has led to concerns about the stability of energy supplies. This has resulted in increased prices for oil and gas, which has affected the economies of many countries that rely on these resources. The crisis has also led to economic sanctions on Russia by many Western countries, including the United States and the European Union. These sanctions have targeted key sectors of the Russian economy, including its financial sector, energy sector, and arms industry. The sanctions have led to a decline in foreign investment in Russia and a reduction in trade between Russia and other countries. The impact of the crisis has not been limited to Russia and Ukraine. Many countries around the world have been affected by the decline in trade and investment between Russia and other countries. For example, the European Union is a significant trading partner with Russia, and the decline in trade between the two has had a negative impact on the European economy. The crisis has also had a significant impact on the global financial markets. The uncertainty surrounding the conflict has led to increased volatility in the markets, with investors nervous about the potential impact of the crisis on the global economy. This has led to a decline in stock prices and an increase in the price of gold and other safe haven assets. In addition to the economic impact, the crisis has also had a human toll. The conflict has resulted in the displacement of thousands of people and has led to numerous casualties. The ongoing violence has also led to increased tensions between Russia and other countries.